Imagine a bustling waterfront in the early 20th century, a chaotic, deafening symphony of human sweat, splintered wood, and tangled ropes. Thousands of dock workers swarmed colossal vessels, manually hoisting heavy barrels of oil, massive sacks of coffee, and fragile wooden crates of machinery deep into the dark holds of ships. This agonizingly slow process, known as breakbulk cargo, meant merchant vessels spent vastly more time tethered to the docks than they ever did sailing the open ocean. The sheer friction of this manual labor created a massive bottleneck that choked international trade, making it prohibitively expensive to move goods across long distances. A young trucking entrepreneur named McLean found himself trapped in this logistical nightmare in 1937, sitting in his truck for a full day just waiting for his bales of cotton to be unloaded at the pier. He realized the maritime system was fundamentally broken, wasting both precious time and immense amounts of capital. McLean envisioned a radical simplification of this ancient trade, proposing that cargo should remain locked in a single sealed box from the factory floor all the way to its final retail destination. In 1956, he transformed a converted World War II oil tanker named the Ideal X, loading it with 58 metal boxes in Newark, New Jersey. When that vessel sailed for Houston, it carried more than just freight. It carried the exact blueprint for a total economic revolution. The immediate financial arithmetic of that maiden voyage was absolutely staggering to the established shipping industry. Loading a traditional breakbulk ship cost nearly $6 per ton, a heavy tax that ate away at the profit margins of manufacturers and consumers alike. McLean's standardized metal boxes plummeted that loading cost to a mere 16 cents per ton, effectively wiping out a massive friction tax that had constrained human commerce and international trade for centuries. This sudden, brutal efficiency triggered fierce resistance from those whose livelihoods depended entirely on the old inefficiencies. Powerful longshoremen unions recognized the existential threat posed by these steel boxes, launching widespread strikes to halt the relentless automation of the waterfront. Traditional port cities, whose shallow harbors and congested urban streets could not accommodate massive new cranes and sprawling freight yards, fought a bitter but ultimately losing battle against the march of technological progress. The physical geography of global commerce began to warp around the strict demands of the container. Historic, bustling waterfronts in Manhattan and London were rapidly abandoned, replaced by vast, sterile concrete expanses in places like Elizabeth, New Jersey, and Felixstowe. These new megaports became highly automated, heavily guarded exclusion zones, permanently severing the traditional cultural link between maritime cities and the massive ships that had historically sustained their local economies. For McLean's bold vision to truly conquer the globe, the box needed to become a universal language understood by every nation. During the late 1960s, a grueling series of international negotiations established strict ISO standards, dictating the exact dimensions, weight limits, and corner fittings of every single box. This vital standardization meant a container loaded in Tokyo could seamlessly lock onto a truck chassis in Los Angeles or a rail car in Chicago without ever being opened. The ultimate proving ground for this logistical weapon emerged not in commerce but during the Vietnam War. The United States military faced a catastrophic supply bottleneck in Southeast Asia, with vital ships waiting weeks just to unload crucial materials. McLean secured a massive government contract to deploy his system, proving beyond doubt that his standardized containers could deliver military hardware with unprecedented speed and precision, completely resolving a crippling logistical crisis. That lucrative military contract provided a hidden, world-changing advantage for his rapidly expanding company. On the return voyage from Vietnam, rather than sailing empty ships back across the Pacific Ocean, McLean diverted his vessels to Japan to pick up commercial consumer goods. This strategic detour effectively subsidized the birth of trans-Pacific container shipping, linking the burgeoning post-war factories of Asia directly to the insatiable consumer markets of the American middle class. Suddenly, the cost of transporting a television, a washing machine, or a pair of sneakers across the ocean became statistically insignificant to the final retail price. This near-zero friction severed the historic economic link between where a product was consumed and where it had to be manufactured. Corporations realized they no longer needed to build factories near their customers, unleashing a massive, unstoppable wave of industrial outsourcing that would completely redefine the modern global economy. Entire nations leveraged this new logistical reality to pull themselves out of agrarian poverty and into sheer industrial dominance. Countries like South Korea, Taiwan, and eventually China transformed into manufacturing powerhouses, their rapidly growing economies supercharged by the ability to export cheap goods seamlessly to the West. The standardized box became the physical mechanism that allowed developing nations to plug directly into the vast, accumulated wealth of the First World. Retail giants capitalized on this frictionless oceanic trade to build commercial empires of unprecedented scale and power. Companies like Walmart built their entire business models on the assumption of cheap, reliable trans-Pacific shipping, stocking endless aisles with inexpensive foreign goods. The container enabled the transition to just-in-time manufacturing, where the global supply chain functions as a continuously moving warehouse, eliminating the need for costly domestic inventory storage and maximizing corporate profits. Yet, this hyper-efficient, highly profitable system exacted a hidden toll on the human beings who actually moved the cargo across treacherous waters. Today, massive vessels carrying well over 20,000 containers are operated by skeleton crews of just 24 sailors who spend lonely months entirely isolated at sea. These mariners have become the invisible ghosts of globalization, trapped in a highly commoditized labor market that operates far beyond the jurisdiction of traditional labor laws. The corporate landscape of maritime trade has also consolidated into a deeply opaque, highly powerful oligopoly. A handful of massive European and Asian shipping conglomerates now control the vast majority of oceanic freight, forming complex, legally shielded alliances to manage vessel capacity and aggressively dictate pricing. This immense concentration of corporate power allows a few boardroom executives in Copenhagen or Geneva to quietly influence the inflation rate of nearly every nation on Earth. The inherent fragility of this hyper-optimized, heavily consolidated system was violently exposed to the world in recent years. When a single massive vessel wedged itself sideways in the Suez Canal, it instantly paralyzed a critical artery of global commerce, freezing billions of dollars of cargo in place for days. The event proved that our modern supply chain, stripped of all redundancy in the ruthless pursuit of maximum efficiency, remains deeply vulnerable to a single point of failure. Every disruption in this finely tuned network ripples outward, manifesting as empty store shelves and soaring prices for everyday goods. The shipping container, originally designed to eliminate friction, has inadvertently created a world so deeply interconnected that a localized shock in a Chinese port or a drought in the Panama Canal instantly impacts the bottom line of a small business in Ohio. Ruthless economic efficiency has ultimately bred a dangerous systemic fragility. We now live in a world entirely constructed by the cold, mathematical logic of the corrugated steel box. It strictly dictates the design of our highway overpasses, the dredged depth of our coastal harbors, and the exact location of our massive suburban distribution centers. It is the physical equivalent of the Internet, a standardized protocol that moves heavy atoms just as seamlessly as fiber optic cables move digital data across the planet. The true legacy of that first experimental voyage in 1956 is not just a profound revolution in maritime logistics, but the total rewiring of human civilization. A simple, unassuming metal box conquered the oceans, dismantled traditional industries, and quietly built the interconnected world we inhabit today. It remains the silent, invisible engine of global wealth, hiding the immense, staggering complexity of our modern economy right in plain sight.